I thank the chairman very much, and I want to join the stellar members of so many different backgrounds to add an extra 2 minutes to that 30 minutes and emphasize that it is now 32 more minutes than we have had an opportunity to discuss gun violence against our children. I'm reminded of the late John Lewis, and as I look to the front, Ms. Speaker, where you are, I'm reminded of the overwhelming impact that gun violence had just a couple of years ago when he was alive, so much so that members took to the floor, the actual floor, sat down on the floor because the pain was so deep. I remember the tear that President Obama shed as he had to speak about Sandy Hook. And I remember my going to Uvalde within days of 19 children and teachers being slaughtered. Yes, Mr. Speaker, they were slaughtered with an AR-15 that a young man was able to get online, shipped to him without any background check of sorts, without any supervision, and he was able to recklessly shoot his grandmother in the face and then leave his house to go to an elementary school just a few blocks away. One could not expect law enforcement initially to know what was going to happen. But the one thing we do know, that if that young man had not had an AR-15, those little babies in Uvalde, where parents are still in such abject pain, would still be alive. We also know that as I worship with them, as I hug them, that they have now become, through their own advocacy, absolutely incredulous that we in this country have not been able to pass bans on assault weapons, bills like the Kimberly Vaughn Firearm Safe Storage Act, which impacted Kimberly Vaughn, 14 years old, who died in the Santa Fe because another young man was able to loosely get guns that were left at home. So I think I'm here as a mother and as a member of Congress who have been here since Columbine. And I remember being on the Columbine task force to see what we could do about guns, and then been through Sandy Hook, Parkland, Santa Fe, Texas, Virginia Tech, the various churches, synagogues, temples that we've seen gun violence, dance studios. And so I don't know what it takes for this Congress to come together. No one is trying to take away anyone's firearm. The Second Amendment is constitutionally present. It is in place. But none of the language in the Second Amendment prevents us from having reasonable, safe regulatory scheme that help save all of our lives. So I want to thank the chairman very much as the vice chair of the Gun Task Force and the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Crime. We are waiting and ready to take up bills, as we did with the Protect Our Kids and certainly Safer Communities. But there is still the lapse of real bills that further need to be in place to change laws. And the waiting period, the issue of the universal background check, storage bills are really crucial to saving lives. My last point that I want to make is that we use often mental illness. Let me say that we pray for people who suffer from mental health concerns. But other countries around the world have people who suffer from mental health concerns. I do not label them in generality. These are human beings who fight every day to survive. That is not a good excuse for saying that's what's causing gun violence. It is not. And in tribute to my colleagues who come from cities like Chicago and other cities where there's handgun violence and individual violence and domestic violence, you need to have a response to just plain gun violence. And that means we have to debate on this floor and find a common solution. My word to my colleagues, in the name of the children who have died, the number one killer of our children in America, in the name of places like Uvalde and Sandy Hook that comes to mind, Parkland and other places where children have died, we can minimally do something to help our children. Let's do real anti-gun violence legislation. Let's make our children safe. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentlewoman for her remarks and her good work on